What if your business could run with the precision of a symphony? Every part in sync, every outcome predictable. Today, we explore the three types of systems every successful business needs.
And we're diving into some fantastic material for this, excerpts from the E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber.
Absolutely. It's a book that really gets you thinking about how businesses actually work or, how they should work.
Right. And
Right.
what's
Yeah.
interesting here is that the author, Gerber, he's kind of been talking around systems for a lot of the book, hinting at them.
Yeah, laying the groundwork.
Exactly. But this is where he really stops and says, okay, let's define this properly. Let's break it down. It feels like a pivotal point.
He even brings in Werner Heisenberg, the physicist, right at the start.
He does, talking about the world as this complicated tissue of events where everything's connected and overlapping.
Which is a pretty deep way to start thinking about your corner shop or your consulting firm.
But it sets the stage perfectly. His whole argument is that your business is that kind of interconnected system. You can't just isolate one part.
So our mission today, then, is to really unpack that. We're going to look at Gerber's definition of a system in a business context.
Yep. And then explore the three specific types he lays out, using his examples to see how they function on their own.
And crucially, how they need to integrate, how they fit together to make the whole thing work predictably.
That integration piece is really the core of it.
Okay, let's jump in. First things first. What exactly is a system, according to Gerber?
Well, the definition he provides is pretty fundamental. He says a system is a set of things, actions, ideas, and information.
Things, actions, ideas, information.
Okay, that interact with each other, and by doing that, they actually alter other systems.
Interacting components affecting other things? Okay, that sounds, well, it sounds really broad. Like almost anything could be a system.
And that's kind of his point on one level. He talks about the universe being a system, the planet, San Francisco Bay.
Right, even the coffee cup he mentions, or this conversation we're having now.
Exactly. It's all interactions causing change. But obviously, he quickly narrows the focus.
We're not trying to systematize the cosmos here.
No, he brings it right down to the systems inside your business, the ones he says we can understand.
The tangible processes, the structures,
Yeah.
the stuff you can actually get your hands on and, manage.
Right, the elements you can design, measure, tweak, and improve.
Yeah.
The controllable bits.
So if these are the systems we're focusing on within the business, what's the big picture goal here? Why systematize? What's the point?
He ties it directly into what he calls the business development program, which is like the central idea of the whole book.
Right, that's about transforming the business.
Yes, and that program is all about innovation, coming up with the ways things should be done, quantification, measuring how well they're done,
Okay.
orchestration, making sure it all happens consistently in the right sequence, and finally, the integration of all these systems.
Innovation, quantification, orchestration, integration. It sounds very methodical, like building something solid.
It is. And the ultimate payoff, the reason you, the listener, the business owner, should care. The explicit goal, he says, is to free you up, to build a business that works predictably without you having to be there doing everything all the time.
The classic E-myth trap, getting out of being just the technician.
Exactly. It's about creating leverage, moving from being in the business to working on the business, designing it, leading it.
That resonates. Okay, so going back to Heisenberg and that interconnectedness idea, Gerber really hammers this point home about the business itself, doesn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He's really strong on this. He basically says it's almost impossible to truly separate one system from another within the business.
He uses that word lunacy, right, to try and treat parts as separate.
He does. Lunacy. Because his logic is everything you do in one area inevitably ripples out and affects other areas.
Like changing your marketing changes.
Yeah.
Sales needs, production.
Yeah, exactly. Marketing
Yeah.
affects sales, sales affects production, production hits inventory, inventory impacts cash flow affects staffing. It's all linked.
So trying to fix just one bit without thinking about the knock-on effects.
Is just asking for trouble. It's like whack-a-mole. You fix one thing, another problem pops up somewhere else because you didn't see the connection.
And this isn't just about the day-to-day operations, is it? He connects this to the big picture strategies, too.
Totally.
Hey.
He lists all those key strategies: the primary aim, strategic objective, organizational, management, people, marketing, and the system strategy we're focusing on.
Right.
And says they're all completely interdependent. They're not separate boxes you tick off. They have to mesh.
They need to work like a single organism.
That's a good way to put it. And the success of that whole business development idea, building what he calls the franchise prototypes, that consistent, predictable business model,
Yeah.
depends entirely on getting this integration right. The prototype is the integration. It's not just a collection of good ideas, it's how they all work together.
Okay, that's a really clear framework. Systems are the building blocks, everything's connected. Mastering that connection is key to freedom and predictability. And to help us grasp this, he breaks the systems down.
Into three main types, yeah. Makes it a bit easier to manage. He identifies hard systems, soft systems, and information systems.
Hard, soft, and information. So let's dive into the first one. Hard systems. What are these?
Hard systems are basically the inanimate things, the non-living components of your business.
Like the actual physical stuff, desks, computers, the building itself.
Exactly. The source gives examples like, the computer someone's typing on, or even the paint color on the walls in reception. Tangible objects.
Seems straightforward enough, but he uses a really vivid example to show their power, doesn't he? From his own company.
Ah, yes. The famous prevent-a-smudge system. This one really illustrates the concept beautifully.
I remember reading about this. It involved whiteboards.
Lots of whiteboards. They use them constantly for training, brainstorming, everything. It was central to how they worked.
Yeah.
They had really high standards for their office environment.
Okay.
Part of that standard was a specific color scheme. Whiteboards, blue markers. And crucially, very clean white walls.
Whiteboards, blue ink, white walls. Uh-oh. I think I see where this is going.
You got it. A direct conflict immediately popped up. They had a rule. Clean the whiteboard completely before you leave the room. Restore it perfectly.
Sounds reasonable. Keep things tidy.
On the surface, yes. But then, human nature meets physics. People are in a rush. They grab the eraser, give it a quick wipe.
And the blue dust flies everywhere.
Exactly. Fine particles of blue ink sprayed right off the edges of the board and onto those pristine white walls. Little blue specks, smudges.
Driving them nuts, I imagine.
Absolutely crazy, according to the author. So they launched this huge campaign to fix it.
What did they try? More rules?
Oh, everything but changing the physical setup initially. They had blue ink on the walls meetings.
Seriously, meetings about ink on walls?
Yep, they wrote memos.
Yeah.
Subject, blue ink on walls. They created detailed board cleaning policies, set up special cleaning teams, did wall tours to inspect.
Wall tours? Wow.
Board spot checks. They even put up signs everywhere. Be careful.
That is an incredible amount of human effort and management attention focused on blue ink. Did any of it work?
Not a bit, he says quite bluntly. No matter what we did, blue ink got on the walls. They were stuck. Either live with messy walls or repaint constantly or ditch their whiteboards. None of those were good options.
So how did the actual prevent-a-smudge system come about? Where did the idea for a heart system solution come from?
It came from finally analyzing the core conflict. The desire for perfect white walls versus the reality of the whiteboard blue ink human haste combination. He points out that this conflict, wanting something but having something else, actually contains the seeds of innovation.
The tension creates the potential for a new solution.
Right. But you need one more ingredient, will. The determination to actually solve it, not just complain about it. Conflict plus will equals energy, movement, a solution. Conflict without will just equals
frustration, spinning your wheels.
Exactly, like they were doing with all the meetings and memos.
Right.
So with the will to fix it, they looked at the physical interaction and the heart system solution they came up with.
What was it? Something complex.
Surprisingly simple. Almost laughably so after all the other efforts.
Yeah.
They designed and installed a clear lucite collar around the edge of every whiteboard.
Like a little plastic frame, extending outwards.
Yep, extending 4 inches out from each edge.
And that was it. That solved the great blue ink crisis.
Instantly. Totally. The ink dust hit the clear lucite instead of the white wall. Walls stayed perfectly clean.
Wow.
And the effects were huge. Employees were apparently delighted. No more nagging, no more policies, no more wall tours. Clients noticed and were impressed. All that management time, the constant repainting, the memos, all gone. Thanks to a simple piece of plastic.
That is such a powerful example. A non-living object, a hard system, solved what seemed like a people problem.
That's the key takeaway Gerber emphasizes. It was a hard system providing a solution to a typically people-intensive problem. And it achieved the desired result. Clean walls, happy people without anyone having to think about it. The system did the work.
It took the burden off human attention and behavior and put it onto the inanimate environment. Brilliant. How did Sarah, the pie lady in the book, relate this to her business?
Well, the author prompted her to look at her shop in the same way. She started seeing her hard systems everywhere.
Like?
The sign outside, the floors, the walls, The display cases for the pies, the tables, the chairs, even the uniforms her staff wore. All inanimate physical things.
Okay, all the tangible elements. And what was her insight?
She realized that when you design these hard systems intentionally and make sure they all fit together, the whole physical space starts to look and feel like one cohesive, integrated system. It communicates the essence of All About Pies just through the physical environment.
So the hard systems create the stage, the visual identity. Okay, that makes sense. Let's move on to the second type. Soft systems. How are these defined?
Soft systems are different. They are defined as being either animate living things or ideas.
Animate or ideas. So people themselves are soft systems.
Yes, the source says explicitly, you are a soft system.
Yeah.
But it also includes things that are purely conceptual, like the script for a play Hamlet is the example given. It's an idea expressed in words.
So systems involving people interacting or systems based on concepts, communication, scripts.
Exactly. And the main really detailed example Gerber uses to show the power of soft systems is something he calls the PowerPoint selling system.
Ah, the sales process. That's definitely an area where consistency is often a huge challenge for businesses. He starts by talking about that 80-20 rule, doesn't he?
He does. You know, the common observation that 20% of the salespeople often bring in 80% of the sales.
Right. The superstars versus everyone else.
But his insight is that it's not just about talent. He argues the top 20% are usually successful because they are consciously or unconsciously using some kind of system. The other 80%, they're just winging it.
That reframes it quite a bit. It implies sales success is potentially teachable, systematizable.
That's exactly his claim. And he makes some pretty bold statements about the impact implementing a proper selling system can lead to huge jumps in sales, like 100% to 500% increases, surprisingly quickly.
Wow, those are big numbers. So how does he define this PowerPoint selling system? What is it?
He defines it as a fully orchestrated interaction between you and your customer. It follows a very specific, predetermined sequence of steps and uses carefully crafted communication.
Orchestrated interaction. Sounds very deliberate. He breaks it down into 6 main steps.
Yes, 6 core components to build this system. Let's walk through them. First is identifying the key benchmarks.
Benchmarks, what are those in this context?
They're the critical decision points the customer goes through during the sales process, the moments where they need to shift their understanding or commitment to move forward, like milestones on their journey.
Okay, mapping the customer's decision path. What's step 2?
Step 2 is literal scripting, and he means literal, writing down the exact words needed to successfully guide the prospect through each of those benchmarks.
Not just talking points, but word-for-word scripts, like for actors.
Precisely, like the script for a play is how he puts it. The exact phrasing matter.
Okay, scripting. Step 3.
Creating the materials that support each script. Brochures, forms, visuals, whatever you need to hand over or show alongside the words.
Got it. Materials. Step 4.
Memorization. The salespeople have to memorize every script for every benchmark, know it cold.
Identify benchmarks, write scripts, create materials, memorize scripts. What's step 5? Sounds crucial.
It is. Step 5 is delivery. Salespeople must deliver each script in the exact same way every single time. Identical delivery.
Identical. That's the part that always makes me pause. Doesn't that sound really robotic or inauthentic?
It's a common reaction, and it leads right into step 6, which explains why this seemingly rigid approach works. Step 6 is about enhanced communication.
How does identical delivery lead to enhanced communication? Seems like the opposite would happen.
Because, the argument goes, when the salesperson doesn't have to constantly think about what to say next, how to structure the conversation, what step comes after this, their mental energy is freed up.
Ah, okay. They're not burning cycles on figuring out the process mid-conversation.
Exactly. The system, the script, handles the what. So the salesperson can focus entirely on the person in front of them. They can really listen, watch body language, sense hesitation, answer questions authentically, acknowledge feelings. They can engage much more deeply because the structural part is taken care of.
So the script is like the guardrails on the road, keeping things on track, allowing the driver, the salesperson, to focus on the actual driving and interacting with the environment, the customer.
That's a great analogy. And this ties into his idea of structure and substance.
Right. Explain those two.
The structure is what you do. It's all the predetermined stuff,
Yeah.
the words in the script, the materials you use, maybe even how you dress, the repeatable framework.
And the substance.
That's how you do it. It's what the individual salesperson brings. Their tone, their enthusiasm, their empathy, how they use the materials, their energy, their presence, how they are when delivering the structure.
So the system provides the bones, the structure, and the salesperson provides the life, the substance within that structure.
Precisely. And Gerber argues that it's this combination, this merging of a solid structure with authentic substance that produces results far beyond what even a naturally talented salesperson could achieve just by improvising all the time. The system leverages and elevates their ability.
And he has examples of this working, beyond just theory.
Yeah, he mentions specific cases. A career development firm saw a 300% revenue jump in a year using salespeople who weren't experienced, just trained on the system. An ad agency, 500% increase over 2 years. A health spa, 40% up in just 2 months. The claim is it makes results predictable.
It takes the guesswork out, aims for consistency regardless of who's doing the selling. Okay, let's get specific. How does this look in practice? He details the scripts for the key benchmarks, right?
He does. He focuses on 3 main presentations within the selling process: the appointment presentation, the needs analysis presentation, and the solutions presentation.
Let's start with the first one, the appointment presentation. He says this is where things often go wrong immediately.
Yeah, because most salespeople, especially on a cold call or initial contact, think their job is to qualify the prospect, see if they're worth talking to.
Find out their budget, their authority, etc.
Right, but Gerber says that's totally wrong for this stage. The only goal of the appointment presentation is to make an appointment, period.
Just get the next meeting, don't try to sell anything yet.
Exactly. The entire script for this first interaction is designed just to move the prospect to agree to the next step, which is the needs analysis.
No.
It's usually short, very carefully worded, and aims to engage the prospect's unconscious.
Engage the unconscious. How does the script do that?
By talking about the product, but defining the product as the benefit or the result, not the thing itself. He uses the example of Johnny Jones from the fictional Walter Mitty Company selling financial control services.
Okay, so give us the script for Johnny Jones making that first contact.
It's very direct. Johnny calls Mr. Jackson and says, "Hi, Mr. Jackson. I'm Johnny Jones with Walter Mitty Company. Have you seen the remarkable new things that are being done to control money these days?"
Remarkable new things to control money. It's not asking if Mr. Jackson needs control, just if he's seen the new things. It creates curiosity.
Exactly. The script anticipates the likely response, "What new things?" which is the hook. Johnny's immediate scripted reply is, "Well, that's exactly why I called. May I have a moment of your time?"
And that's basically it. That's the appointment presentation script.
That's the core of it for setting the appointment. The analysis is that the product here is financial control. The key word is control. Implies Mr. Jackson might not know these things, might not be in control, and the way to find out and gain control is to talk to Johnny.
It taps into a potential desire or insecurity without being confrontational.
Yes. And the argument is this creates an immediate emotional commitment, curiosity, a desire for control. Agreeing to the appointment then provides the rational justification for exploring that feeling further.
Yeah.
Job done, appointment set.
Sell the meeting, not the service.
Okay.
So, appointment made. Now we move to the second benchmark. The needs analysis presentation. What's the goal here?
Now you start delivering on the promise. The first step in the script for this meeting is actually to loop back and reestablish that initial emotional hook.
Oh.
The example script starts, "Remember, Mr. Jackson, when we first talked, I mentioned that some remarkable new things were going on in the world to control money. Remind them why they agreed to meet."
Reinforce that initial curiosity. Okay.
Yeah.
Step 2.
Clearly state the purpose of this meeting. Tell them what you're going to do. The script continues. Well, what I'd like to do is to tell you about those things. At the same time, I'd like to show you some incredibly effective ways my firm, Walter Mitty Company, has developed to help you to control money here in your business. Okay.
Set the agenda, get their buy-in for this specific conversation. Makes sense. What's next?
Step 3 is critical. Build credibility and trust. You need to communicate your expertise and your willingness to help them specifically. Expertise comes from a clear positioning statement.
Like a tagline.
Sort of, but very focused. For the Walter Mitty Company, it's simply, "We are money controlling specialists." Clear, specific.
Defines what they do and the willingness part.
That comes from showing you understand their world, their potential frustrations. The script gives examples. Frustrated by paying higher interest rates, by working with financial experts who don't seem to know what they're doing, by banking with a bank that doesn't seem to have their best interest at heart.
Naming common pain points.
Right. And then you ask directly, "Do these things ever frustrate you, Mr. Jackson?" Of course they do. You validate their feelings, And then you introduce your company's system as the solution.
Not just the company, but the system.
Yes. You position the money controlling system as the way people like Mr. Jackson can get preferential treatment and the lowest cost. You acknowledge it might sound too good to be true and immediately promise to explain how the system makes it possible.
Okay, so that leads into explaining the system itself. Step 4.
Exactly. You describe the system, how it works, and what it does for them. The example system has 3 design goals.
Which are?
First, it's designed to find out exactly what bothers this specific prospect about their money control. This involves using a tool, like a money management questionnaire, designed to capture their personal situation. Completing this is the first step for them.
Gathering personalized data systematically.
Second, that questionnaire goes to a dedicated part of the system, the financial systems group specialists who review the data.
A defined process step.
Third, the data is fed into the core money controlling system, which analyzes it against historical data and generates personally tailored solutions just for that prospect.
Custom solutions based on their input, generated by the system.
Right. Solutions aimed at getting that preferential treatment, lowest cost, real control. And these solutions are compiled into a formal financial report.
So the needs analysis explains this whole process: data gathering, analysis, personalized report generation.
Yes. You explained you'll deliver and review this report with them later, and you clearly state the value prop.
Mm-hmm.
The report is free, shows you're serious, no obligation.
Lowers the barrier, provides value up front. What are the last few steps of this needs analysis stage?
Steps 5, 6, and 7 wrap it up. Step 5 is actually completing the questionnaire with the prospect during the meeting. Ensures it's done right, keeps them engaged.
Makes sense. Step 6?
Provide any other info you promised earlier and clearly link it to the upcoming financial report. Connect the dots.
Okay. And the final step?
Step 7 is making the appointment for the next benchmark, the solutions presentation. You reiterate the value they'll get tailored solutions, no cost, and promise to take the time to explain it fully, whether they buy or not.
So again, the goal isn't closing the sale here, but opening them up, gathering info, and securing the next meeting by demonstrating a credible, systematic approach.
Precisely. You're exposing their frustration, showing a path to opportunity via your system, and getting them emotionally and rationally invested in hearing the specific solutions.
Which brings us to benchmark 3, the solutions presentation. The book says this should be the easiest part if you did the first 2 correctly.
That's the claim. Because, as Gerber puts it, the sale is already made. He argues against the idea that selling is about closing.
He says selling is opening.
Exactly. The needs analysis opens the prospect to their problem and the potential solution. By the time they get to the solutions presentation, they're already bought into the idea of getting those remarkable new things: preferential treatment, control. They feel the need.
The emotional groundwork is done.
Right. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide the rational armament for the emotional commitment they've already made. You give them the logical reasons, the data, to justify the decision they already want to make.
Backing up the feeling with facts. How does the presentation itself go?
First, Johnny Jones briefly reviews everything covered in the needs analysis, reminding them of the journey, the discoveries. They might not remember details, Gerber notes, but they'll remember the feeling.
Recapping the story so far.
Then, you patiently walk through the tailored financial report in detail, every number, every recommendation.
Making sure they understand their specific solution.
And critically, you have to ask questions throughout to make sure the prospect feels it's their report, relevant to them. Make it personal.
Get their ownership. And then comes the close.
After the review, you ask the specific closing question provided. Of the options we've suggested here, Mr. Jackson, which do you feel would best serve you right now?
A direct question asking for a choice among the presented solutions. And then, the hard part.
The waiting. The book states the absolute rule and then waits for the answer, because the next person who speaks is going to make a purchase. If that's Johnny Jones, he's going to buy a no sale.
Silence is golden. The salesperson absolutely cannot speak first after asking that question. That takes discipline.
Huge discipline. But the logic is sound. The emotional sale is made. This calms the rational choice. Once the prospect speaks and chooses an option, then you move forward and write it up.
Obviously, there's handling objections and details, but that core is review, ask the question, wait.
That's the essential structure. And Gerber is adamant this system works for practically any business selling anything: pools, puppies, pies, whatever, because it already has.
Because the underlying psychology and process are universal, and the key to making it work is
Consistency. Absolute consistency. Use the same words, same steps, same review process every single time. That's how you turn selling into a completely predictable technology for producing formerly unpredictable results.
Predictable technology. I like that. Okay, let's bring it back to Sarah and her pies. She found it hard to picture this for selling pies initially.
Yeah, it seemed overly complex compared to want a slice of apple. But the author reminded her she was already using bits of soft systems.
Like how she greeted customers.
Exactly. Hi, have you been in here before? Versus just, can I help you? That's a simple soft system. He also reminded her of other examples.
Yeah.
The hotel's hiring script, the manager telling the company's story, checklists, the management system itself, all soft systems.
So it's not just sales, it's any structured interaction or communication.
Right, and the real power comes when all these communications, recruitment, training, signage, brochures, ads, customer interactions are integrated.
Like the hard systems needed to look integrated.
Same idea. All the words, spoken and written, need to reinforce the same core message. For Sarah, that message was, we are all about pies, and there's no one else like us.
Every touch point reinforces the unique brand idea.
Yes. These integrated soft systems become the unique idea of the business. Its lifeblood, heart, spirit gets shared and brought to life.
They operationalize the passion and vision. And understanding this moves you beyond just being good at the technical skill, like baking.
Exactly. It unlocks the business's potential. And, as Gerber points out, building these integrated systems, it's actually supposed to be fun. You're creating something unique.
Okay, great exploration of soft systems. That leaves the third type, information systems. What's their role in this framework?
Information systems are all about the feedback loop. They're the systems that provide information about how the hard and soft systems are interacting and performing. Measurement, basically.
They tell you if the other systems are actually doing what they're supposed to do.
Pretty much. Examples are things like inventory control systems, cash flow forecasts, sales reports, systems designed to gather, track, and present data.
And how do these information systems specifically support something like that PowerPoint selling system we just detailed?
They are absolutely essential to know if that selling system is truly predictable. They track its performance quantitatively, step by step.
How? By tracking specific metrics.
Yes, by tracking what the source calls information benchmarks all the way through the sales process. He lists 13 specific ones for the selling system.
13. Okay, let's hear them. What should you be tracking?
All right, here's the list, following the flow. 1. Number of calls made, raw activity. 2. Number of prospects reached, connections made. 3. Number of appointments scheduled, appointment script success. 4. Number of appointments confirmed, commitment level. 5. Number of appointments actually held, did they show up? 6. Number of needs analyses scheduled, moving from appointment to analysis. 7. Number of needs analyses confirmed, commitment to analysis. 8. Number of needs analyses completed, got through the process. 9. Number of solutions presentations scheduled, needs analysis success. 10. Number of solutions presentations confirmed, commitment to final stage. 11. Number of solutions presentations completed, did the meeting happen? 12. Number of solutions actually sold, the close rate. 13. And finally, the average dollar value per sale, the financial result.
Wow, that is granular. That gives you visibility into every single conversion point in the funnel.
Exactly. And you can track this manually on forms or obviously with software, CRM systems. The point is, tracking this stuff systematically gives you incredible insight.
What kind of insights specifically?
Well, first off, you can calculate the conversion rate between any two benchmarks. What percentage of calls lead to appointments? What percentage of needs analyses lead to solutions presentations? You immediately see where the system is strong and where it's weak, where the leaks are.
Pinpoints exactly where you need to improve the script or the process.
Precisely. It also lets you see where a specific salesperson might be struggling. Is someone great at getting appointments, but terrible at closing the needs analysis? You can offer targeted coaching based on data, not just guesswork.
And you can probably tell who's sticking to the system and who's going rogue.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
If someone's conversion rates are way off the average, especially if they're lower, it might indicate they're not following the structured process. Plus, if you know your costs, like cost per call, you can use these conversion rates to figure out your cost per lead, cost per presentation, and ultimately your true cost per sale.
That's critical business intelligence, moving from anecdote to actual numbers.
Right. The information system tells you, as the source puts it, the things you need to know. Contrasted with the things you don't know now if you're operating without this data.
And knowing these things empowers you to do what?
To actually develop, control, and change your selling system effectively. You know what's working, what isn't, and where to focus. And this applies not just to sales, but finance, production, everywhere.
He uses that metaphor about glue, doesn't he?
He does. If the overall system strategy is the glue holding the whole franchise prototype together,
Yeah.
then information is the glue holding the system strategy itself together.
Information holds the systems together. Why?
Because it's the feedback. It tells you when and why you need to change something in your hard or soft systems. Without it, you're just guessing, flying blind,
He compares it to putting on a blindfold, spinning around, throwing a dart,
and hoping you hit something useful, waiting for a sign from the heavens,
which he says is, unfortunately, the game most small businesses play.
relying on gut feel instead of data.
Hmm.
So how did Sarah connect with this, the pie baker?
She already had some basic info systems, right? She knew daily sales, types of pies sold, maybe busy times.
Basic outcome tracking, yeah. How many pies sold, when, maybe who bought them, dine-in versus to-go.
She had a starting point.
Yes. But after learning about the detailed benchmarks for the selling system, her insight was realizing she could track a good deal more than that. She saw the value in measuring the process, the interactions between systems, not just the final output.
Moving beyond just counting pies sold to understanding how and why they were sold and how efficiently.
Exactly. Information systems give you the control tower view, letting you manage and improve the hard and soft systems that actually run the business.
Okay, fantastic. So we've got hard systems of physical stuff, soft systems, people, ideas, communication, and information systems, the data and feedback.
The things, the actions, the ideas, and the information. The core components of business and life, really.
And the absolute critical point, the one message woven through all of this.
Integration, integration, integration. He comes back to it again and again. Can you see now how inseparable they are? How they constantly interact and affect each other?
Trying to treat them in isolation really does start to sound like
Lunacy. Because marketing conside, soft, impacts the need for display cases, hard, which impacts inventory tracking information, which
Yeah.
impacts baking schedules, soft, hard, and so on, is all one big system.
And building your business means consciously designing and building that integrated system where all the strategies and all three types of systems work together seamlessly.
That's the essence of the franchise prototype. It's not just having systems, it's having integrated systems. That's a breakthrough.
Understanding that integration is the key takeaway here. It's what moves you from reacting, from playing that dart in the dark game.
To proactively designing a business that works predictably and effectively, achieving the results you want. Time to stop leaving it to chance.
It really paints a picture of building a business as an act of deliberate creation, designing the physical space, scripting the interactions, measuring the results, and making sure it all works together to deliver a specific, consistent experience.
Creating that symphony, like you said at the start, every part playing its role in harmony.
So as you, our listener, reflect on all this, here's that final thought to consider. How might deliberately focusing on integrating your hard, soft, and information systems help you uncover some hidden potential in your own business? How could it help unleash that unique spirit or core idea you started with, but maybe haven't fully brought to life yet?
It's definitely worth pondering. Maybe ask yourself, which of these three system types, hard, soft, or information, feels like the biggest opportunity or maybe the biggest headache in your business right now? Where could applying this kind of systematic thinking make the most difference starting today?